Welcome back to the Justice Conference Asia 2016. We're here with Victoria, who's the Advocacy and Campaigns Manager at Justice Center Hong Kong. And you were sharing with us a little bit about an issue that's very unique to Hong Kong, which is the domestic helper issue. You guys did this incredible research that maybe it's never been done before. Could you tell us a little bit about what that was?
Sure. So we did a study that we embarked on last year, and it's the first study of its kind to estimate in a statistically significant way the actual prevalence of forced labor and human trafficking for the purpose of forced labor amongst domestic workers in Hong Kong.
And how did you guys go about doing that research?
Well, we actually got a market research company that has a great reputation. They're multinational. They've done lots of pieces of research to actually do the survey itself. They surveyed people from around a dozen locations in Hong Kong, from 8 countries of origin. And of course, the survey instrument, we based it off of the ILO's definition of forced labor and guidelines provided by the International Labor Organization.
So I think when we talk about forced labor, I mean, in Hong Kong, it seems like domestic helpers are such a part of the culture and things. So when we say forced labor, what does that mean for the domestic helpers?
Well, first of all, I think when you talk about forced labor, you have to know that it's not just about individual labor violations. It's really the accumulation of a bunch of exploitative practices. And that was what we measured when we did our study. But then domestic workers in particular are uniquely vulnerable to exploitation. They work behind closed doors. They have far less legal protections than what are offered to other workers. They're new to Hong Kong oftentimes. In fact, those who are most vulnerable tend to be new to Hong Kong. And also they face a host of discrimination based on their gender, on their race, on their immigration status. So all of these factors combined make them quite vulnerable to forced labor.
Right. And from the research, I mean, there was a lot of information that you shared, but what were some of the things that really stood out for you?
I mean, obviously the key finding that stood out for me, and this was what was given back to us by the data analysts when we got it, and we saw that 1 in 6 domestic workers in Hong Kong is in a situation of forced labor, meaning they bear all the markers required to be positive in forced labor. That to me was really striking. Of course, you don't just do a quantitative survey, you have to actually have qualitative discussions with domestic workers when you do comprehensive research. So in the discussions with domestic workers, what surprised me is the one issue that they really are worried about and are concerned about is how much they work. So they work on average 70 hours a week.
Wow.
And in the discussions with them, they talked a lot about just wanting to have me time, to not be at the beck and call of employers, to have a rest time like any of us would want to have in our job. We want to, also be able to have our own private life. And this is so difficult for them.
Right. And Sundays, of course, is a mandatory day off. Do you find that they're actually taking that day off?
So the study confirmed that the, average domestic worker in Hong Kong, 40% of them, they don't get their 24-hour mandated day off. So they often have to work before or after they leave the house. Sometimes they don't even get the day off at all. They have to work. I mean, we ask people, how often do you get a day off? And some people were only getting a day off once a month, for example. They're supposed to be getting that on a weekly basis.
So if that's the law, and the law is clearly being broken 40% of the time, what's being done, in terms of actual legal enforcement of that?
We think that something that would help is if the employers were also given training on their rights and responsibilities. So, when you are actually contracting a domestic worker, or as is called here, a helper, right. It is a working relationship, and you have duties, and you have to make sure that you follow the labor stipulations. So education is a big aspect of it.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you so much, Victoria, for being here at the Justice Conference, and thanks for sharing.